I hand over to Alec.
Okay, so today we'll be talking about assessing and developing agile leaders, and our main focus will be based on the leadership game, which has been developed within the Develop project. So one of the objectives of Develop, and for those who are familiar with the whole project, probably this is very well known to you, is to deliver an adaptive learning environment that dynamically tailors the exploration, comprehension, and planning of learning opportunities and career paths in medium and large companies. So the whole idea is that we want to develop a personalized learning environment whereby employees can go into this environment and play around with certain aspects of their own competencies to work out what will be the best type of career they should be wanting for. Within the project, there's a project scope. It's a European subsidized project. It takes 3 years. We have 9 partners, of whom you see the logos on the right-hand side. In total, we have more than 30 people participating within the project, and we've got a budget of nearly 3 million euros to finish this project within the 3 years that stand for it. And most of the partners that you see on the right-hand side are also participating in this webinar today. So how do we go about measuring career development? Uta, you wanted to say something about this?
So we have said that Develop creates a tool, a personal learning environment to support your career development, and to tell you the context about the game we are talking about in this webinar. We gave you a screenshot of the tool we are developing and some of the services we offer to users. So on the one hand, our system will kind of calculate competency profiles given on a number of inputs. For example, we can do self-assessments, peer assessments, formal assessments, or even complete learning activities. And from all this input, a user creates his or her own competency profile, which is stored in the system. The system then uses an interface where a user can select potential career goals he or she wants to achieve. So a goal could be a new job position, a goal could also be achieving new competencies, a goal could also be achieving the job role of another person. So a user can select the goal he or she wants to achieve, and the system will calculate using AI planning techniques a career plan for this user. So career plan would consist, for example, of recommending suitable learning activities or courses to take to the user. And of course, there are a lot of private informations involved in this stuff, like assessment results. So Develop takes care to treat these data very confidentially. So when a user has, on the right side, you would see a personal dashboard of a user where he already completed parts of his competency profile, and he has chosen as a career goal in that example to become a senior software developer, and the system would show the person where he is with the relevant competencies and what he still has to do to achieve the competencies to acquire this job position. And the interesting question now is, Develop is all about more like soft skills. Alec will talk about this later, will be how to actually assess the competencies of a user. And that's what our webinar is about.
Yeah, so as Uta says, there are various ways to measure success of a career development. You can look at that objectively, but also subjectively. I won't go into that too much today. What we'll be focusing on is the competency profile changes. So you have a certain competency proficiency at this moment, and over a certain period of time, hopefully your competency proficiency will increase. And it's that delta between those two measurements which gives an indication of how successful your career development is. Now, within the Develop project, we've been looking for a taxonomy on competencies. There are many taxonomies available, varying from very extensive to very slim. There's one competency taxonomy which is more or less accepted, at least one of them which has been published on extensively, and that's the Grade 8 devised by Kurtz and Bartram. And I won't go into too much detail on the 8 clusters, but it boils down to the fact that there are 8 clusters, independent clusters of all kinds of competencies, and we're using this model within the Develop project to assess not only how far people are at present, but also whether they're developing themselves or not along these competency clusters. Now, in order to do so, we've taken the element of a competency and we're measuring it within the Develop project in various ways. So we've got a lot of information on, say, for instance, personality and the relationship between personality and a competency. So we know, for instance, that if we're looking at a competency which involves a lot of talking to other people, you need personality aspects like extroversion and altruism. There's also ample evidence in the literature of the relationship between IQ or intelligence measurements and competencies. So, for instance, competencies like problem analysis is strongly related to how bright or smart, at least how much IQ a person has. Now, a method which is commonly used within all kinds of corporates is a feedback measurement system, 360 for instance, whereby various people, either your boss, your subordinate, or a colleague, or in fact, perhaps even a customer, can give you feedback on your proficiency level of your competency. This is these 3 elements are ways of measuring extensively, and I use a lot within corporate life. Another aspect which is very new to the project is what we call social network analysis. Now, the idea behind that is that based on the social network that you have, your social capital that you have, somehow we can deduce a competency level. So presumably, and that's something we're finding out, is that competencies related strongly to relations with other people will have a strong correlation with a very broad network of people, a very large social capital. I won't go into that too much today, because our main focus for today is a serious game which is focused on leadership in this case. And what we intend to do with this game, or are doing in fact with this game, is measuring certain elements of behavior that a person shows relating to the competence. So the leadership game. What I want to talk to you today in the next, say, 20 minutes is the making of this leadership game. So we're going to be looking at what it is, what you can do with it, and you know, what the outcome measures are. But just to start off with a quick question, I would like to ask all the participants whether you, any of you, hold a management position. So the votes are coming in. It's all new, but okay. So nearly everybody's voted, and we see that it's about. No, it's varying. Yeah. So it's about 60% of the participants, of you as participants, have a management position. About 40 do not, which is an interesting thing as such. So let me close this poll and move on to the next sheet. Now I think we've distributed a teaser or a trailer of the management game. I won't be showing it to you here, but you know, feel free that after the presentation you go to YouTube, you can watch the trailer and see what the game is all about. So what I want to talk to you today about is the game. So what is it? What does it look like for those who haven't been able to play it yet? What the added value is of the game, what we hope to achieve with the game, and take a short sneak preview of how the game was developed and how it was produced. And we can do that also by giving you a bit more details of things that you normally wouldn't see. So under the bonnet, all the algorithms, bear with me, I'm not going to get too technical here, but all the algorithms and all the measurement aspects that we have within the game, all in the essence to show that it's you know, it's a game which has been developed with care and with precision. So let me raise another poll here and ask whether any of you were able to play the game or not beforehand. So we have. Okay, the numbers are coming in. This seems to be working very well. So we've got about 50%, so half of you have had a chance to play the game completely. About 31 or 30 you say, so about 50% haven't played the game. About 30% say they have. About 15% say that they've played it partly. Well, that gives me enough reason to show a bit more on what the game is and what it looks like, to give you a bit more an idea on that. So the elements of the game, the ingredients, if you wish, of the game is that we have used one validated model, in the sense that we've used a management model. I'll elaborate on that more extensively later on. So we want a very sound model to be measuring a leadership. There's a questionnaire in there measuring the intention of people as far as leadership is concerned. It contains 52 items, very brief items, very quick to fill out. It takes on average about 5 to 10 minutes. We have 30 dialogues, so 30 measurement points, 6 actors, 4 styles, 5 endings, which means that you get feedback in-game based on the results that you acquired. So everybody should be able to get a different feedback at the end. We measure about 19 competencies. We measure 3 dark sides. I'll elaborate on that later on. And on average, the time to play the game is about 45 minutes. So it's extensive, but it does measure a tremendous amount of aspects. Just to give you a short impression of what the game looks like, for those who haven't been able to play it, just a short walkthrough.
Hi, I'm Emma Magnuson. I'm here to guide the transitional phase our organization is going through.
Hey, Jerry here. My life motto is no change, no progress.
Hi, I'm Timothy. And in my opinion, we can only get things done if we team up and work together on things.
Hi, I'm Ellen Johnson. I really believe in the makeable world.
Hello, my name is Trista. I'm the numbers girl.
Hi, Gloria's the name. Gloria O'Reilly. I understand we both got the same assignment to get our new teams flying again. I don't envy you, Josie.
Let's end the meeting for now and give our new colleagues some room to settle in.
Hi, great to meet you. I'm Ellen. I really would like to talk to you about the many possibilities I see. I've got several ideas that I'd like to share with you. New tasks and positions I would be more than happy to take on during the transition.
This will be the answer that you could give to her remark.
Okay, but new ideas aren't enough. The point I was making was more responsibility. But I'll plan a meeting so I can elaborate on that.
My main point is this team isn't a team, and I don't know how we can make it one again. I wouldn't want to be in your position.
Looking at the work that I do, I could probably most use Ellen's help. But she's probably the least likely person to help anyone out.
So this is just to give you a rough idea. I apologize for the lag time in the between the sound and the visuals. So it's all about a team which you've got to get up and running after they've been malperforming, really. So in the end, the game ends in such a way. That's if the slide.
I saw a balanced mix of various management styles. You considered the personal needs of the team, the needs for processes, external goals, and innovation. Because of this mix, the team was able to succeed on all points.
Wow, thanks.
So these are one of the feedbacks that I said that you can get at the end. So this is obviously very positive feedback that you get, and depending on how you play the game, the feedback evolves and is more or less positive. So we've done some overall satisfaction analysis, asking a number of users what they thought of the game, and so far we got a 9 out of 10, which is quite a good mark as far as the overall satisfaction, and also other factors and elements underneath there are very positive. So one of the things that why we developed a game is that if you look at to the ways to assess behavior, traditional ways that's done by role plays, for instance, or by using questionnaires, but especially role plays are very difficult to scale, in the sense that if I were to assess 1,000 people today, I wouldn't be able to do that by myself in a role play, but I could use a game. So it's a way of being scalable. It's a way of behavioral assessment which is remote. And what we found as well from a lot of research that we've done is that it's much fairer in the sense that people don't seem to be able to fake the answers as much as they would do in a questionnaire. So how do we go about developing the game? We started off by an extensive literature review. So we looked at all various kinds of management and leadership models, and some were very good, others weren't as good. We had to make kind of a trade-off between models which are which are being validated and proven to be reliable, but also models which lend itself to build a game of. So, very good models which are so complicated that you can't build a game of it, they were kind of disregarded. What we did then is we looked at all kind of data which we already have on management styles and how that relates to things like competencies. And subsequently we interviewed a lot of subject matter experts on their assumptions and their feelings as far as leadership's concerned. And this is a quote by Bob Hogan, one of the leading authorities as far as leadership models are concerned. And it's got to do with the ability to build and maintain high-performing teams. So it's all about the team element. And that's something that we try to grasp within the leadership game. So the experts, and luckily, of course, within the consortium, we had a couple of large companies. We spoke to a lot of subject matter experts within those companies. So leaders within, or managers within IBM, Intrasoft, TCD, but also experts in the assessment field of assessment, those who assess on a daily basis people for leadership positions. And what we did is in a kind of semi-structured interview, we asked them questions like, what makes a good and what makes a bad leader, and could you mention some critical incidents as far as leadership is concerned. And the model that we used in this game is the model of competing values, which is a model published and researched very well by Robert Quinn. And what it does is it makes a distinction between two axles, two dimensions. So you've got management styles which are very much focused on either the internal, and just let me highlight that to a certain extent. So very much on the internal side of things versus management styles which are much more focused on the external side of the company of things, and management styles which are very much focused on flexibility compared to, say, for instance, control. And what you see here that you get, in this case, 4 quadrants all relating to the two axles. So if a manager is very much focused on the external aspects of their job position and on flexibility, that will be what we call an external focus, and we call that, or what Quinn calls that, in fact, the open systems model. If, on the other hand, you're very much more internally focused and focused on flexibility, that will be in what Quinn calls the human relations side of things. If you're very much on the internal control aspects, that's what Quinn calls the internal process aspects. And then the rational goal, last but certainly not least, is managers who are very much focused on the external aspects of the job position, but also on control, getting things really, really done. And the idea behind the model is that a good manager has all these roles in their repertoire. So a manager who is only focused on internal processes and leaves out the open system, human relations, and rational goal isn't optimally effective as a manager. Of course, there are distinctions in certain job positions or certain sectors, certain types of organizations. Say, for instance, a marketing organization would expect managers to be much more open systems than if you're looking at, say, for instance, accountancy types of organizations, whereby the internal process would be much more important. So if we look at the critical incidents, I won't go into this in too much detail, but the critical incidents which occurred from the interviews that we had, we say, for instance, we had in the internal process domain, critical instances like difficulty to let go of old ways of working. I think that's something that presumably is very familiar to all of you. So people who have a strong focus on internal processes, don't want to be changing things, want to keep things the way they are, and keep things as they were. And also they have a problem as far as using conventional management systems. So they have a kind of affiliation towards those types of systems. Again, I won't go, time-based into too much detail. You can look at these aspects later on if you want to. So what we did when we devised the game is we took the Quinn model and we related, and for those of you who have played the game, you probably realized that the four characters are completely different. So in the open systems domain, we have Jerry, which is very much that outgoing type of innovative employee. His counterpart is Trista, which she calls is the numbers girl. She's very much focused on the internal processes, and these two have difficulty getting along. They have really difficulty getting along, and it's your job as the manager to get to make that work, make that happen. We've got Ellen. Ellen is the typical rational goal type of person who really likes to get things going there. I believe in the makeable world, she says. And her opposite is Timothy, who's much more sensitive and much more focused on the relationship with people. And again, here there's a discrepancy between these two people. We've got Emma Magnuson, who is the change manager. So she's your boss, breathing down your neck, as a word would be, wanting you to get things up and running and working again. And then to introduce a bit of a game element, your rival, Gloria O'Reilly, who is somebody who's got the same position as you have, but so there's a kind of a rivalry, competition between you and her and the teams that you both lead. So if you look at the scripts, we interviewed 11 subject matter experts. We have 13 different script versions, which we all tested. In total, there are 11,833 words, and it took us about 6 months to develop this game. As I was saying, the main elements within this game are to measure behavior of people. But in order to measure behavior properly, you also need to know something about the intentions that people have. Now, the classical way of going about things is that we measure intentions on a cognitive level by having people fill out questionnaires. And they work, but they do have certain problems, say for instance faking. So if I were to ask you the question, do you steal, presumably everybody would say no, even if you would steal to a certain extent. So questionnaires are very fakeable. A good way of measuring behavior, on the other hand, is via observations. So like I said, traditional role plays, but then again they are very time consuming, hard to standardize, and very hard to make scalable. And that's where the serious game comes in. So the serious game is in the line, the continuum of intention and behavior. It is very close to a behavioral measurement. And we've done a lot of research into this as well. So the outcome of various games, we try to relate that, we have related it, in fact, to actual behavior of people, and the correlation between those two is substantial. It's not a complete replacement, but it comes very, very close. Another thing, advantage of having the intention and the behavior within the questionnaire, within the game as we do within the leadership game, is that we can come up with a kind of a matrix plotting the intention that people have and the behavior that people have. So if we were to look here, you say, for instance, see that if we, in the simulation, somebody has a very low score, say, for instance, on flexibility, or somebody has a very high score on flexibility, there's a difference there. But the difference is made up, especially if you look at the intention. So in this case, somebody has a very low intention, so doesn't really want to be an effective leader, and in this case, the person does. And you can imagine that if you look at that, you have people, if people don't want to be a manager or a leader and do not have the proficiency to be a leader, they're very ineffective as leaders. Whereas if the intention is there and their behavior is there, they are effective leaders, in fact. It becomes interesting when, say, for instance, in this cell, what we're looking at now is that they want to be effective leaders, but they haven't got that proficiency. So they're moderate as far as leadership's concerned, but there is room for improvement there. And on the other hand, we've got people, and this also occurs, people who are very proficient in the way that they manage people, but haven't really got that inclination or haven't really got that intention. So, with other words, they're kind of unconsciously capable of doing things. And if we look at, say, the training effort, and these percentages aren't absolute numbers, but it's got to do with the amount of effort you've got to put into people to get them up to par and to get them on a higher proficiency level. So in the cell, you don't want to and you can't. There's about 75% effort, so a lot of effort you got to put into people to get them up onto the wanted level. In the 10%, so people who have a high intention and also are capable of being effective leaders, of course there's always a slight room for improvement, but not all that much. And in this situation, the 50%, so people want to be good leaders, have a good intention, good inclination, but they haven't got that proficiency level. It's going to be, use quite a lot of effort to get them up to par, but still it is possible. And the same applies to people who are proficient in the way that they manage or lead, but don't really have that inclination or intent. And depending on which cell you are, you can say that, say, for instance, the I can but I don't want to, you need to look much more at the reflection aspects of leadership, whereas if you have people who want to but can't, you need a lot more practice with people. So. Just to give you a rough idea, again, for those who haven't played the game, on the way it looks. So it starts off with one scene.
We need to talk more.
Here we go again.
More meetings. Great. There is such a bad atmosphere in this team.
Oh, please, not that excuse again.
And once you've heard that scene, you get 4 answer possibilities. Normally speaking, you wouldn't see these as a learner. These are something behind the screens, and what you see here is that, for instance, say from our total group, the amount of people who have chosen that answer. You also see here that this answer says the word optimal, and that's based on the expert's judgment from our subject matter experts. This would be the best answer to choose.
Exactly. We need to listen to each other.
So if you choose that last answer, you would get this scene. So the game evolves around the way that you answer to the scenes. And to put it in a very complex way, this is what the model looks like. So what you see here is all the choices that you can make. And they all evolve into certain different paths. So this is what we call an adaptive game, in the sense that, if you choose this item and then go to that item, you get a completely different storyline than when you would have chosen other items within the modeler. And this is in more detail the way that the scoring goes for the game. So what do you get when you play the game? Of course you get your outcomes, and this is part of the reporting section. So what you see here on the left hand side is, say, again, that quid model which I showed you before, and you see here the score. So what you see here is the intention that people have within that domain. So in this case, the person has a high intention as far as human relations is concerned. So he wants to be a team builder, wants to be a mentor, but you see that as far as the behavior is concerned, and that's this graph, the behavior is low. So he wants to, or she wants to, but can't. Whereas, say for instance, if you look at the internal process side, the inclination is not all that high, but the actual behavior is. So you see a very dominant style for this person in this kind of internal process side. Now what you see here is certain aspects, say for instance the discrepancy between the results in the game and the results of the survey, so the intention and the actual behavior. And what we do as well is in the middle of the graph you have the versatility. So in this case, this person has a very dominant style as far as internal process is concerned, but he or she has got a reasonable versatility, so is capable of changing their management style. So in the case that you would have somebody who will have a low mark, say here, and a very dominant style, that's somebody who's not very effective and doesn't also have the ability to be versatile to change their management style. So this is a very important aspect as far as learning is concerned. And what you see here on the right-hand side are the competencies, and this is all based on empirical evidence. So the relationship between, as you see here, some of the algorithms, I won't go into that in too much detail, the distinction or the algorithms to work out the scores on the competencies based on both personality, intent, and your actual behavior. Okay, so where can you use this game for? Of course, it's part of the whole personalized learning environment within Develop, so you can use it on the individual level. If you were to use it within a company, you can also use it on the group level, because all the individual reports can be kind of put together, and you can look at what the predominant leadership style is within your organization. And you can also look at, say, for instance, what is the profile of a management team or any team, if you will. For those who haven't been able to play the game, so about 50% of you, the link is available. So after this session, please go ahead and play the game, and get your report back and look and experience what it's like to play a game like this. Okay, so time for another poll. Do you feel that the leadership game will be useful in your own development? That's the poll. Let me just launch it here. See if you're all awake. Yes, you are. Okay, so we got about a bit more than about 60% who say yes, it would be useful in your own development, and about 40% say maybe. And luckily, none of you have said no, so that's a good way of going about things. Okay, so there's more information on the whole project and on the game itself on the Develop website, of which you see the URL here, and please go there and browse around the website to get more information on the whole project and on the game. So as far as I'm concerned, it's time for questions and answers. We've got about 5 minutes left. So yeah, I mean, let's start off by any questions that people have. If you've got a question, raise your hand. We can open the microphone and you can raise your question. Alternatively, you can send questions via the chat if you want.
I have received one question by a participant who would like to know with whom the game was tested and how the testing took place.
Okay, that's an interesting question. So, how was the game tested? What we did is the game production itself is terribly expensive because of all the actors and the video crew, etc., that we need. So what we did initially was we produced the whole game as far as script's concerned, and then used stills to as kind of instead of the films, the videos, and we tested that with about 60 people. So there are people within the developer project, but also people within our own company, GITP, and we have recently also been testing people within our practice. So people, actual SSEs, people coming for an assessment, we've been gathering data there as well. And so far, we've got good results back. What we're now planning on doing is doing an extensive validation study by looking at the outcomes of the game and relating those to actual performance of people, or SSEs, which we've seen within our company, asking their managers to rate them on the leadership skills.
I've received one more question of a person who has played the game. He asks if the gaming paths always lead to the same end results.
Yes, at the moment it does. There's some technical hiccup that we got there with the builder of the platform. So yes, now there's the most positive outcome that you get. The idea is, as I said in the beginning, that there are 5 outcomes. So for instance, if you've been very much focusing on the internal process side of things, you'll get general feedback from your manager. And then Trista, the numbers girl, will come in and say, oh, you were really good as far as the internal process side was concerned. You really looked at numbers, and I'm really, really pleased with you. And then you would get Jerry coming in and say, yeah, okay, you've been looking at numbers, but, there's a whole world outside there. We need to, really focus on innovation. So you get feedback in those lines. So depending on your profile, you get a different feedback in-game. Not only in the report, but also in the way that people approach you. But it's always a positive element. So you won't get any feedback, oh, you really did bad in this game. It'll be, pluses and minuses.
Okay, there is one more very interesting question. How can the game be used as a training device as compared to an assessment device?
That's something I haven't told you, but if you play the game, or if you're going to play the game, you're playing it in what we call the assessment mode. So you have a one chance to go through the game and to experience what it is and play the game, and you get a report back. There's also a development mode, and in that mode, you've got the possibility to play around and experiment with your behavior. And that experimenting is done by a e-coach, which after you've given an answer will come into the game and say, this wasn't a really effective answer because this and this and this reason. And then you can go back into the scene and try a different answer and see whether that's effective or not. And in total, there's about 5 hours of practicing material within the game itself to practice and to experience in a safe surrounding what it's like to flunk as far as a leader is concerned, but also to excel as a leader is concerned. And of course, the game itself is not a completely standalone in the sense that you can play it, but it always should be embedded in a whole training aspect, so in a whole learning management system with theory and practice, etc.
Okay, there is one more question going back to the evaluation study you talked about, and this person is asking, will the extensive validation study target specific companies or specific target groups or companies from a specific activity domain? So the question is, whom are we going to validate with?
Yeah, the idea is that we're going to validate with people who we've seen within our company, and traditionally the people that we assess are of a higher educational level, so that's at a bachelor or master level, and a lot of people have a mid-range management position, and then we will be asking their managers to evaluate their performance. As far as branches and sectors are concerned, we have our clientele all over sectors, so finance, healthcare, government, making industry, pharmaceutical industry, education, the whole works. We've got our customers in that area, and we'll be assessing that as well. I doubt if there are going to be differences there, but that's something that we can look into as well, whether the game is, for instance, more effective in a finance situation or finance type of organization than in a governmental organization.
Okay, there's one more question coming in. What is the next step when I got my leadership profile? How will I get consultation about my potential career path? So this is a good question. How we feed it back in our system?
Into the PLE, the personalized learning environment. Yeah. So the idea is that I showed you here. We had in total 19 competencies. This is say the most extended version. The idea is that within the personalized learning environment, it'll relate back to the great eight competencies, and that will be then fed back into the system, and that will be one of the measuring aspects. So we have, like I showed you right at the beginning, we have personality, we have 360, we have social network analysis, and we have IQ measurement or intelligence measurement. They all produce their own input for the PLA as far as competencies are concerned, and we'll put that into the heart of the PLE, and that'll then respond with a competency level, and hopefully the level will change as well.
Yeah, and the question was also about how will I get consultation about my career path. So the game is more about assessing where you are with your competencies. Yes, but this AI planning algorithm will kind of, for example, recommend learning activities to you based on a set of whatever 50 learning activities in a company. You would be sent to a leadership seminar or something to develop your.
That's the idea. Bear with us that we've got 1.5 years to go. Yes, and the whole AI planning is something that we're really looking into to see, based on the competency level, the deltas between your competency proficiency, what would then be the best career paths to advise, to consult you with. So it's work in progress as far as that's concerned, but that is the idea. AI planning, artificial intelligence planning.
There is one more question coming in. So it relates to what we've already said. How could the measurements be used to influence training on the one hand, or will it be used to discourage someone from aspiring to become a manager or leader?
The latter is certainly not the intention. We don't want to disencourage people to become managers, unless, of course, you yourself do not really want that, and you find this an excuse, to say, okay, no good for me. I mean, we got to realize that there's a lot of bad leadership out there, and that can lead to all kinds of problems, not only for the person themselves, but especially for their employees and for the organization. So I haven't shown you that, but there's also a dark side aspect in the game, in the sense that it gives a risk rating, a risk as far as the chances of derailment. So if you do not show a very effective profile, you have a low flexibility, and your risk profile is reasonably high, that might be something to go and discuss with a consultant, whether leadership is really something for you or not. The main idea behind this game is to give people a kind of a photo opportunity of where their proficiency is at the moment and what their potential is, and hopefully, based on that indication, people can go out there and follow training and become better leaders, better managers.
That's also an interesting question related also to privacy. I'll read it. Will the supervisors have access to the optimal career path recommended to an individual in order to be able to support them in their career development within a company. So I think this relates to privacy questions, and as far as I know, the system is configurable. So as a user, I can click, yes, my supervisor can see, or he cannot see. But it's a good question.
Yeah, one of the parties within the consortium is Trilateral, and that's a company, a British-based company who specializes in things like privacy. So they a very important part of the project is how we cope with privacy. Not only privacy or privacy within the personalized learning environment or the privacy based on the game results, but also, say, for instance, the social network analysis. Showing all the people that you know in your social capital. So there's a really important point within this this project. And the main thing that they always say is that informed consent is terribly important. So we don't want to be sharing any information about people with others without the consent of that person. So it's the learner who is in charge. He or she is able to switch on or switch off certain privacy elements, but the default is that nobody else can see it. It's only you who can look at your personalized learning environment. And then you've actively got to change those parameters, but default is it's yours.
So I think one more question before we end the webinar. Okay, so can I export my results, for example, to discuss them with a third-party career consultant? So that would be actually from a technical point of view, the result of the game would be fed into the system that you've seen in the beginning, and it would kind of also show up on your personal dashboard, which you can, of course, take to your supervisor. I don't know how exact the report can be exported. That's something Alec could answer.
Well, I mean, when you talk about export, if it's exporting digitally to a different system, that's always a terrific job to do. I don't think we'll be facilitating.
No, that's more with a party, with a third-party career consultant. So
yeah, so it is possible. It is possible to not only print hard copy your personalized learning about at least certain elements of it, but it's also possible once you've played this game to print your report hard copy, or at least PDF, digital in that sense, and you can take it with you and discuss that with, say, the L&D manager within your own organization, if you wish, or an external consultant. So there is a possibility of getting a hard copy of the results.
Okay. So if you have any further questions, contact us, send us an email, look at our website. We would like to thank you very much for attending this webinar, for your interesting questions, and hope to see you in one of our upcoming webinars. I'll close the webinar now, and you can give us a bit of a feedback after closing the webinar.
Thank you, everybody.
And thanks to Alec for giving this nice presentation. Bye-bye.